Hafid under the guidance of Imam Ilyas Anwar. He is currently a junior studying computer sciences and data sciences at UC Berkeley. And he is also my nephew too. So Alhamdulillah, the whole family is proud of him and his younger brother becoming Hafid. And then we have Brother Hamza Khaja. Hamza is also a Bay Area native who studied Quran under Sheikh Tayyib. He is currently a senior studying computer sciences and data science at UC Berkeley too. So Jazakallah khair. Thank you everyone for joining, and we will have, I'm going to stop sharing and we'll have Brother Omair Nasri to start off with, and he will first go through the topics he's going to cover, and then he will walk us through, and then it will be Brother Hamza.
Yeah. Okay.
So stop sharing and then.
Yeah. Okay. So, Assalamu alaikum. As Shaki Uncle mentioned, my name is Omair. And then Hamza is also here with us. I'll go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see the little presentation that we have set up. Okay. So are you guys able to see that?
Yes.
You're coming a little low. See if you can get closer to the mic.
Okay, perfect. So Hamza and I, we've both grown up in the Bay Area, and we thought it would just be useful to talk to just some of the youth regarding our experience growing up as a Muslim, some obstacles we faced, and kind of how we've dealt with our Muslim identities here growing up, and then also mainly focusing on Quran and Salah, as they're two of the most important things for a Muslim. So yeah. So let's see. So I think I can start off with doing a recitation, and then Hamza will continue from there, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون كلا سيعلمون ثم كلا سيعلمون ألم نجعل الأرض مهادا والجبال أوتادا وخلقناكم أزواجا وجعلنا نومكم سباتا وجعلنا الليل لباسا وجعلنا النهار معاشا وبنينا فوقكم سبعا شدادا وجعلنا سراجا وهاجا وأنزلنا من المعصرات ماء ثجاجا لنخرج به حبا ونباتا وجنات ألفافا إن يوم الفصل كان ميقاتا يوم ينفخ في الصور فتأتون أفواجا وفتحت السماء فكانت أبوابا وسيرت الجبال فكانت سرابا إن جهنم كانت مرصادا للطاغين مآبا لابثين فيها أحقابا لا يذوقون فيها بردا ولا شرابا إلا حميما وغساقا جزاء وفاقا إنهم كانوا لا يرجون حسابا وكذبوا بآياتنا كذابا وكل شيء أحصيناه كتابا فذوقوا فلن نزيدكم إلا عذابا إن للمتقين مفازا حدائق وأعنابا وكواعب أترابا وكأسا دهاقا لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا جزاء من ربك عطاء حسابا رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما الرحمن لا يملكون منه خطابا يوم يقوم الروح والملائكة صفا لا يتكلمون إلا من أذن له الرحمن وقال صوابا ذلك اليوم الحق فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه مآبا إنا أنذرناكم عذابا قريبا يوم ينظر المرء ما قدمت يداه ويقول الكافر يا ليتني كنت ترابا صدق الله.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, I'm Hamza. As Omair gave the intro for, I'm currently a student at Berkeley as well, in my senior year, and I'll recite Surah Nazi'at inshallah. Bismillah. والنازعات غرقا والناشطات نشطا والسابحات سبحا فالسابقات سبقا فالمدبرات أمرا يوم ترجف الراجفة تتبعها الرادفة قلوب يومئذ واجفة أبصارها خاشعة يقولون أئنا لمردودون في الحافرة أئذا كنا عظاما نخرة قالوا تلك إذا كرة قاصرة فإنما هي زجرة واحدة فإذا هم بالساحرة هل أتاك حديث موسى إذ ناداه ربه بالوادي المقدس طوى اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقل هل لك إلى أن تزكى وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى فأراه الآية الكبرى فكذب وعصى ثم أدبر يسعى فهشر فنادى فقال أنا ربكم الأعلى فأخذه الله نكال الآخرة والأولى إن في ذلك عبرة لمن يخشى أأنتم أشد خلقا أم السماء بناها رفع سمكها فسواها وأغطش ليلها وأخرج ضحاها والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها والجبال أرساها متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى يوم يتذكر الإنسان ما سعى وبرزت الجحيم لمن يرى فأما من طغى وآثر الحياة الدنيا فإن الجحيم هي المأوى وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى فإن الجنة هي المأوى يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها فيما أنت من ذكراها إلى ربك منتهاها إنما أنت منذر من يخشاها كأنهم يوم يرونها لم يلبثوا إلا عشية أو ضحاها. Alright, Omair, do you want to start off with the next slide?
Yeah. So, or I guess this is your slide, so go for it. Hamza, make sure you're.
I just unmuted. Okay, can everyone hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So over here, we just wanted to go over a couple of the preferences that Omair and I have. Of course, we know there's like a bunch of awesome different recitation styles throughout the world. And Omair and I have we have many favorite qaris, but this is one of the qaris that I really try to listen to often, model my recitation after. And his name is Ismail An-Nuri. And this is an example of him reciting Surah Mulk. So Omair, if you can play that video.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور الذي خلق 7 سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور.
Yeah, so that was Ismail An-Nuri, and then my recitation or qari of choice is Qari Fatih Safarajic. I think he's Bosnian, and then I can play a little clip.
عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون كلا سيعلمون ثم
Yeah. So that's my I guess my favorite qari. I listen to him a lot. And then someone mentioned about putting the names of the qaris in the chat, and yeah, we can definitely do that. And then here are just a couple of different recitation styles. So I think there's about 7 different types of actual qira'at or maqamat. But these are just different implementations of those. And I guess we can play a couple of these clips.
اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور.
So that was Qari Ziyad Patel. And then I'm sure we've all heard of Sheikh Mishari Al-Afasi. He's also one of my favorite reciters.
الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Yeah, so I think the recitation style that Sheikh Al-Afasi is reading in is actually the Ajam Maqam. And then Hamza, you want to mention the next couple?
Yeah, sure. So next we have Sudais. I'm sure everyone has heard of Sudais. Sudais leads at the Haram pretty often, and again, world-class, renowned qari, and they have a very unique style. It's different than Ziyad Patel, who's a little Maqam Ajam over here. So we can now see Sudais.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد إلا الله قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
استووا أقيموا صفوفكم واعتدلوا الله أكبر
الله أكبر
الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
So I think Sheikh Sudais is actually the permanent Imam of Masjid al-Haram, and then he actually recently got appointed to be the chairman for both Mecca and Medina. So he's, mashallah, he's doing great things. But yeah, Hamza, go for it.
So one thing I wanted to mention is thank you for that explanation, Omair. And next we're going to actually show Fatiha in one breath. And what I want to mention is a lot of Qurra, as I'm sure everyone has noticed, they have very long and deep breaths. And one way that they practice that is, you know, after watching some videos and you know, like seeing how they practice to increase their lung and just breathing capacity, what they do is they breathe more from their diaphragm, meaning that when they take a breath in, instead of their chest expanding outwards, which is the default, you know, how people just like naturally do it, they actually have their stomach go outwards and their chest doesn't move at all. So they're actually breathing from their stomach, which gives them a much longer breath capacity, and it allows them to go on for sometimes even an entire page of Quran. So we're going to see over here an example of, you know, that type of breathing from the diaphragm. And it takes a lot of practice because, of course, you know, working on your lung capacity is not going to be done in the course of a few weeks. So this is an example of doing Surah Fatiha in one breath. And many Qurra can actually do what he did 2 times over even. So Omair, you can play that.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Cool. Omair, do you want to play the emotional recitation?
Yeah. And then I think this is a good example of how like different types of qira'at recitation are for different types of moods. So one can be very exciting and very uplifting. One can be there's even saddening types of qira'at. And so this is very emotional. So this should be touching.
يمنون عليك أن أسلموا قل لا تمنوا علي إسلامكم بل الله يمن عليكم أن هداكم أن هداكم للإيمان إن كنتم صادقين إن الله يعلم غيب السماوات والأرض والله بصير بما تعملون.
Yeah, so those are just a couple of different types of recitation styles, and then we can move on to yeah, Salah. So Hamza, start us off.
Sure. So Omair, do we have the bullet points on the next slide, or is this the slide that we should cover it on?
Yeah, there's a slide we should cover.
Okay, awesome. So a quick question, Shakil uncle, is the audience here more middle school students, high school students, or what's the distribution like?
They are a mix of mostly from middle school and high school.
Okay, perfect. So when talking about Salah, I want to talk about Salah from the perspective of my perspective is more of like the public school kind of system. So I went through elementary, middle, and high school. I'm just very conventionally, just as a public school student does, and then Omair can talk about more of like a homeschool perspective and also a community college perspective as well. So what I've noticed is in public school, there's obviously no kind of system and way to consistently have a place to pray. So what you have to do is you have to like go out of your way, maybe talk to your principal, talk to any like school administrator, and ask them, hey, like between 2 and 4 o'clock, is it possible for me to come and just pray in like the office or pray in like some secluded, carpeted or like safe area on like a daily basis, or even like more than once a day, right? And once you do that, here's the thing: everyone is going to be very understanding of it. You just have to go out of your way to make sure that you can catch like Dhuhr or even catch Asr if you're there for after school activities as well. So I think this is something that every middle schooler and a high schooler should really take into consideration, because we don't realize how easy it is. We just have to simply ask for them to give us accommodations, and then we'll be praying in like a room instead of like outside on the grass or on some concrete where it's like very uncomfortable. Because here's the thing: if you pray in an area where you're making it difficult on yourself and you're making it very uncomfortable, you're not going to be looking forward to Salah. You're not going to be looking forward to connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So we want to make sure it's, first of all, the easiest, and also in like a comfortable and quiet place, and also a place where we're not obstructing and disturbing other people in their path of like walking from class to class. So that's noticed a few people in my high school did. And it's very critical, because when you establish that routine of praying with Dhuhr, like regardless of what commitments you have, when you get to college, it's only so much easier. It's actually even easier to do it there, because high schools are generally larger, and there's like multiple offices of administrators that you can speak with, and they're generally okay with you praying Salah in like one of their rooms. People are very understanding these days, especially in California, and especially in the Bay Area specifically. Alhamdulillah, they're very, very accommodating of different like races, of different religious beliefs and faiths, and just basically everything overall. So I think we should start this habit early, because when we get into college, Omair and I, alhamdulillah, we've had the habit of praying earlier, but we have some people that it's not as easy for them to get started with all 5 of their salahs, because they realize, oh wow, I have to maybe even pray in like some outdoor area on the grass. Some people are not willing to make that jump because they just weren't even praying earlier, right? You go from not praying to like praying in front of people in the open when it's like really windy. That's a very big jump, right? To make that jump more smooth, you want to at least consistently praying in maybe in like some indoor room in high school, right? So I think it's important for everyone to maybe try prioritizing this and seeing if there's some way to have like even just like a daily Dhuhr accommodation. And generally every teacher that I've asked has always been okay with this. So Omair, do you want to talk about how it is at community college, if it's similar, and also homeschooling?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Or something that they already have set out where you can go and pray, and if there isn't, you can take the initiative yourself to reach out to school faculty or whoever, the board, and create a meditation space. And yeah, and so but I think it's more important to note, for me, the biggest jump for me was going from a masjid environment, obviously where we pray like Fajr and Dhuhr, before and after my hifz class, from jumping from that to going to school where there's no perfect environment set up, where there's no perfect wudu area set up, where you have like everything, right? You have like soap, you have like paper towels, everything you need to make wudu properly, perfectly, and go make salah on like a really comfortable carpet. Like it's not like that in the real world, right? Of course, like we're blessed, we have masjids around us, but we're not in the masjid for, you know, most of the day. So I think that was the biggest jump for me, was just kind of learning how to make wudu in whatever random like public bathrooms that there are, and just making like the whole world like your prayer space, right? Yeah, I think there was like a really important, I don't want to quote a hadith incorrectly, but there's something relating to how every spot in the world that you make a sajda on will be like a spot, there will be a light of nur coming from there on the day of judgment, and all those spots will rise up and speak in your defense on Yawm al-Qiyamah. So I mean, it's just crazy to think like how many spots that there are going to be in the world that are going to get up and raise and speak in our defense. So I think it's really important to keep in mind the importance and the value of salah, of course. And then we touch on adhan a bit, especially for the youth, just because for younger kids, if you're young, it's not always possible to get involved in the masjid where you can start leading salah and start using your qiraat recitations in salah. But anyone can easily make adhan, right? And adhan is, of course, one of the most important things, especially right now in quarantine. It's the perfect time to practice your adhan and just practice with your family when you're praying salah in jamaat or whatever you're doing, right? So I just have two examples really quickly. One is from the haram. You guys are probably very familiar with this.
Before you play it, I just wanted to add one quick point on salah. So for students that are in middle school and high school, you know, I'm aware that you all have like 6 to 7 classes distributed throughout the day, with like 5 to maybe 7 minutes of like a passing period in between like one class and another class. So it's actually better to pray salah in between, like, you know, in the passing period. And if you go class that you a little much in passing period, just for like a lack of disturbance and all, then it is for middle of the class, because there may be a little bit of disturbance. You want to make it easier on, right? You don't want salah to be like a disturbance on yourself and the whole like class environment. So I'd say it's better to pay in the passing period, maybe go 1 to 2 minutes into the start of the next class. So I think it's more optimal. So Omair, thank you for you can just done now. You had a really good point.
I think someone mentioned.
Omair, can I say something? And Hamza, can you give it like few minutes, a couple of minutes to explain why is it very important for the salah? Why is it that salah is very important? You know, we understand that we have to pray, like you can reach out to the schools and all, but what we want to know is why are we, because the middle schoolers, normally they think that they are not aware of, you know, why we need to do it 5 times.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so that's a very good point. Yeah, I'm glad we're covering that. So I think one really important thing to realize is as you grow older and older, you're going to be taking on more and more things. So in middle school, you're going to school, maybe you have 1 or 2 extracurriculars, you're playing sports maybe, and maybe you're taking a evening like Quran class or something, right? So you may be doing 3 things. But as you grow older and older, when you're a college student, you'll be studying, and then you'll also be maybe working, maybe also interning, also playing sports. You'll also want to spend time with your family, and then also want to spend time with your parents. And then on top of that, maybe you have a final coming up or something. So things always add on in life, and life just gets more and more complicated, right? But salah is the single grounding factor that'll always be there. It's the only constant in your life. So in your life, like people are going to come and go, like things are in your environment is always going to change. Circumstances are always going to change. But for me, I think that's the most important reason for why salah is so important. Another huge reason is nowadays people go to therapists and all these health professionals, and a lot of them recommend doing things like yoga and stretching and things like that. And you'll realize that a lot of those same movements that we do in salah are exactly what physical therapists recommend. So I broke my elbow recently, and they were telling me to do one specific type of exercise, right? Where you kind of bend over and your elbow gets bent. And when I was doing that, I realized, and I told my therapist that this is something we do 5 times a day already. It's when you go into sujood and you bend over and your elbow gets bent. And it's just like amazing to see that, like, all the I guess the expert advice and everything. Well, of course, that advice is very sound and very legit. But a salah handles more than just your spiritual sense, but also like takes care of your physical sense. And then Hamza, talk a little bit about.
Omair, thank you so much for that. SubhanAllah, it's crazy how literally what your physical therapist told you, it's incorporated into salah. And there's so many other examples of that too, like all of these ways to loosen up your back or just to relax other muscles. You realize that it's like one of like the several positions that we do in salah. And it's just insane how praying salah, not only like, eat one joint, but all the joints in your body to some degree, right? So what I want to mention is coming at it from a little bit of a different perspective, just so we can get, the both perspectives. I think I have a lot of friends that, because, I'm a senior and a lot of my friends are a couple of years older than me, meaning that they've graduated from college and they've been working for a couple of years. And, prior to this point, they were just paying tuition or they didn't have their own income, right? But now they're making a lot of money and they're starting to question themselves. They don't know what the purpose in life is. They're making 200K, maybe even 250K, some of them, and just for themselves. They're not married yet, no spouse, and they don't have to support anyone else. All the money's for them. They're spending it, and they thought that, prior to this, before graduating, they're like, oh, when I have all this money, I'm going to be happy now because I can spend it on myself. I can do whatever I want. I can get anything in the dunya, basically, and I can purchase a great car and have a down payment for a house. They've done all of that. But guess what? Now they're coming to me and they're saying, man, I'm still not happy. And these are non-Muslims, of course, right? They're like, I'm still not happy. I just don't know, like, what else there is to life, right? Because they realize they're just gonna work for 42, 43 years, from 22 to 65. They're gonna retire and they're just gonna have the same kind of like, lack of purpose. So, they came and they asked, like, I don't even know what's going on. I'm just not happy. I want to be content. That's when I realized that alhamdulillah, us as Muslims, we have a purpose. What's our purpose? Why are we here on the earth? To worship Allah. And when do we worship Allah? 5 times a day in salah. So for the middle schoolers and high schoolers out here, this salah that you're doing 5 times a day is literally fulfilling your purpose, and it's literally allowing you to have no void in your heart, in that point, that place in your heart where you're going to ask yourself later on in life and, just whenever, why am I here? Why am I even alive? Why am I going through this entire like education system and like this whole like, job search and then working a job for 43, 45 years. And then once I'm retired, what am I even doing? The reason is like, you're supposed to be worshiping Allah, and salah is consistent 5 times a day. If you just do that throughout your life, inshallah, you'll be fine. So it's just awesome how salah has that significance. And sometimes we downplay it because it's so often. But the fact that it's so often is a huge blessing. So, I told my friends about that, and they're actually like interested in learning more about Islam, because that kind of purpose is nothing else can fulfill that void in your heart. You need to know why you're here on this earth. Otherwise, things don't make sense. It doesn't make sense that it's just a bunch of randomness, right? But that's a different discussion. I think we'll move on. Hopefully that was a good answer from both of us, Shakil uncle.
Yeah, thank you. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much for that. So we can continue.
Okay, Jazakallah. So we can, so I was mentioning adhan. Like I mentioned earlier, adhan is great because anyone can give adhan, right? So any young child even can give adhan. And one thing that you'll realize is when you start practicing giving adhan and making adhan, it'll be really fun, right? As you learn how to do recite adhan better and better, it'll become more and more fun. And like I mentioned, right now is a perfect time. You're at home. You can just give adhan in front of your family and get feedback from them and go from there. But yeah, we have 2 short clips. And we have 2 clips because these are 2 very different adhan styles, as you'll hear. So one is the normal haram style, and then one is the maqam rast style, which is the African adhan style. So I'll start with the haram. So that was the haram style, and then here's the African style. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
أشهد أن لا إله أشهد أن محمدا رسول
So yeah, so those are the two recitation styles. I personally like the Maqamara style more, but it's a lot harder also. As you can see, he has a lot of power and energy, so it's definitely something that takes a lot of practice, and it's really fun when you start learning it.
And I just wanted to quickly add, so Umair mentioned earlier that giving the adhan is a great opportunity for kids to participate in some aspect of salah in like their masajid that's local to their house, right? So Umair and I, we were actually at one of the largest masjids in the Bay Area, and it's a masjid that has a qari that leads salah every single time. And despite there being a qari there, he wants the kids that know how to give the adhan pretty well to give the adhan. The only thing is there's a lack of kids that know how to do the adhan. So Omair and I, we gave a lecture and a talk there actually, and we told them this exact same thing. And a lot of them realized it clicked to them that, wait, like we can actually give the adhan in their awesome world-class microphone system. Because obviously, it's not the same they can't lead because the qari is there, but the qari wants someone to give the adhan. And because none of the kids are prepared, the qari does both things himself. So this is an awesome opportunity. And, in a lot of the massages that we go to, there isn't like, a qari leading, and there isn't anyone for the adhan. So this is a great opportunity for kids of any age, middle school, high school, college, to practice and then, get the goods. I don't want to quote in hadith. I've heard that if we knew the rewards of the adhan, we would be drawing lots. We'd be drawing lots to give it, right? I'm sure many of you have heard this as well, right? It shows that the award is like, we can't even comprehend the reward. So that's why a lot of people try giving the adhan a lot, but I think this is a great opportunity for the youth, because a lot of the youth, they do have a lot more time than the people that are older. So this is a huge opportunity. And Omair and I have also been, inshallah, we make to focus on our adhan and make the improve.
Yeah. Okay. Jazakallah, Hamza, for that.
Alhamdulillah.
Hamza, start us off.
Okay, so I think a huge thing with recitation is intention. And this is something you always want to think of why you're reciting right before you do it. A lot of people, when they're sitting in front of crowds, or when they're giving the adhan, or when they're leading salah in front of a crowd of like 200, 300, 400, it's very easy to think, oh, I'm going to recite in this maqamat or this maqam to impress this crowd because it's a very unique maqam, right? Or it's very easy to think, what are their reactions going to be? I want to impress them. But here's the thing. Why would you try to be impressing humans when humans are absolutely nothing? We're all made of dirt, and Allah is the Almighty. Allah is literally the author of the Quran, of the words that you're as I mentioned, we're reciting, and if Allah is happy with us, then we'll get Jannah. What can these humans give us? What can these humans that enjoy recitation give us? They can't give us Jannah. They can't give us anything. In fact, they can only give us praise, and that praise can instill arrogance in our heart and bring us even lower and towards a path where we cannot have any Jannah, right? If you have even a mustard seed weight of arrogance in your heart, you cannot enter Jannah, right? And that's a Sahih hadith. So that's something that we should definitely keep in mind. And every time, right before you recite, just make sure, ask yourself, why am I reciting? Am I reciting for the people, or am I reciting for Allah? It's always very important. And when you do this too, I'm sure Omair can tell you, when your intention is straight, your recitation naturally just ends up being better, right? Because you're just doing it for the right intention. So, Omair, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I definitely 100% agree. I agree.
Okay, cool.
Jazakallah.
Yeah, well, yeah. So another huge thing is balancing deen and dunya, right? And so that means for some people that are working full-time, that means going to work and then coming home, having the time to read Quran and learn about the deen and everything. But especially for younger students, it involves going to school and having friends. And again, like we mentioned, Hamza and I, we both, of course, we went to middle school, we went to high school, we know what it's like. You have school, and then you also want to hang out with your friends. And Hamza and I, alhamdulillah, we grew up playing sports. Like we've been playing soccer, I think, for a long time, right? I've been playing soccer for 10, 15 years. I'm sure Hamza has been too. So we've both been very involved in playing sports, hanging out with our friends, whatever, eating good food, and then also doing well in school. But it's really important to understand how to balance those two things, right? And when you're doing those two things, balancing those two things, there's one key, again, that we already touched on, which is salah. So whatever you're doing, whether you're at work, whether you're at school, we kind of touched on this already, but it's really important to have the habit of praying salah regardless of where you are. And that's because, again, like we mentioned, salah is a constant. It should always be there. And that way, even if you're out hanging out with your friends and you're having the time of your life and you're eating like whatever, burgers or pizza or whatever, you're hanging out with your friends, you're eating good food. And then when it's time for salah, if you go just pray however many rak'ah you need to go pray, and then you just continue hanging out with your friends, that's the balance. You're doing both, right? You're living the best of both worlds, I guess, like deen and dunya. And then, and then Hamza, continue.
Yeah, so an example of that is Omair mentioned sports. He's been playing soccer for 10, 15 years, as long as he can remember, right? And example of that, I think Omair and I were playing soccer at the park one time. I think this was actually like in college, so it was pretty recently. And there were a few other friends there too. And when salah time came, literally like we had just jackets, we took them off and we used those, as like, prayer mats, and we just prayed on the grass. And that's an example of us just telling our friends like, hey, we're just going to take a quick salah break. And no one thought any of it. No one thought anything of it. It was just completely fine. It only takes like, 3 to 5 minutes. So even non-Muslims will just be completely understanding. In fact, they'll respect you. And sometimes, at a school like Berkeley where people are so liberal and like understanding, they'll even join you too. And they'll just be going through their motions and they'll be like, I like what this guy's doing. It's like so peaceful, right? So always be proud of your prayer. Always be proud of your deen. And just know that like, if it's a little weird praying because people are like, doing sports, you're going to have to tell them, let me take a quick break. Just know that we've done it. You're not alone. And everyone else a lot of people have done it as well. So just wanted to add that as well.
Yeah, I think like one thing that I can add to that is, again, I think I've mentioned this before, or maybe I haven't, but it's not uncool to be a practicing Muslim. It's not uncool to pray salah. It's actually going to make you the coolest person ever, because you're going to have the confidence to get up and leave whatever you're doing for 5 minutes and go to the side and pray salah. And people are going to see you with so much more confidence. Not that you're doing it for other people, you're doing it for the sake of Allah. But you'll see that originally maybe you would have thought that, people will judge you. People will go like, this guy is just so religious, or he's too religious. But actually the opposite, like inshallah, will happen. People will be attracted to you. They'll see that you have morals and values that you follow. And those are all qualities of leaders. And like Hamza mentioned, at a school like Berkeley, there's been so many times where I've been praying in our libraries and our study areas, and random like brothers have joined me, like without me even, people that I haven't even ever seen, they've just seen me pray like Dhuhr or Asr or whatever, and they've just came up and just started praying with me. And that's happened so many times where I started praying alone and I ended up with a congregation of 4, 5, even 6 people, right? So it's really like amazing to see like what good things happen. You take the first step.
Exactly. And just to add something to that, Omair mentioned that when you pray salah and you tell non-Muslims, excuse me, can I just take a 5-minute break? I have to quickly go pray, and in front of them, that will actually make you like the coolest person in the gathering. Because societally these days, people respect anyone that does something consistently. They respect. I know people that respect. Like he's so cool. He always eats at the same exact time every day. He has a really good eating and diet schedule going. That's super cool. People also respect. That guy's 5 a.m., 7 a.m. every day. That's awesome. He's literally very consistent with his work. Get very big. And here's the thing. That's one thing aside, right? But they're like, I respect him even more because he's not only sticking to something, but he's sticking to something. He's worshiping someone he cannot even see. Look at that level of conviction. Regardless of whether they think you're right or wrong, they're going to respect you, and you're going to end up being the coolest kid on the block, basically. And we've literally seen that out of school. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. Jazakallah. So again, balancing deen and dunya is, I guess, directly correlated to having a Muslim identity, being confident of your Muslim identity, not being afraid. So there's no reason to be afraid. We're in California. No one's gonna, say anything to you for doing something. People go out there are doing all sorts of weird stuff. So you praying salah or choosing not to eat at a restaurant because it's not halal or whatever, is no one's gonna judge you for that, right? But I guess one thing so we faced some obstacles, and we actually wanted to open up to you guys and see if there were any obstacles that you guys faced, anything that we can maybe talk about and address. So just, yeah.
Does anyone have any questions related to Muslim identity?
Okay, if not, we can continue. Okay, yeah, and so the last point that we wanted to touch on was academics, and I'll let Hamza start us off for that.
So, so the first point, I think Omair can actually talk about this. A lot of people assume that when you're focusing a lot on Quran, and Omair, went through Hifz for multiple years, mashallah. Many people, including like his friends in his Hifz program, thought, oh, we're gonna fall behind in like math, science, English, geography, all that stuff because we're spending so many hours on Quran. And it's a very common fear of people that are doing homeschooling because they feel like they're missing out on public school because they just don't know what they're missing out on. But I was over here in public school and realizing that like we're not even doing anything special. We're literally learning at a slow pace. And honestly, if I had something like, homeschooling and the barakah of the Quran in my life, you can learn whatever you're learning in public school 2 or 3 times faster because our public school, our education system is not optimal. It's not, meant for you to be learning super fast as much as you can hold in your brain, not even close, right? It's not like med school or anything. So basically, when you spend time on what truly matters, right? Studying Quran, studying the hadith, just learning about, fiqh or like anything Islamic, it puts barakah in your time and you don't fall behind, but you actually get ahead because that little chunk of time that you actually spend studying math, science, English, you just cover way more every minute, every hour. So that's something that I've noticed. I've never fallen behind when I've just taken time out to read Quran that day. And Omair, do you want to talk a little bit about like doing hifz?
Yeah. So like Hamza mentioned, so I was in Hifz for 3 or 4 years, and during that time I was homeschooling full time. So I was doing Hifz full time, and then I was also homeschooling in the evenings. So essentially, one fear that I had, I guess, the whole time was that I was falling behind. I wouldn't be able to apply colleges with the same academic level or same competitiveness as other students that were currently in high school. But I realized that all the time that I had spent learning and doing Hifz, I was actually able to talk about that on my college essays, and I was really able to communicate all the qualities that I learned. So one huge thing that I learned, I think, at a young age is time management. So when you're doing Hifz, you're in madrasa from 8 or 9 a.m. to say 2 p.m. till after Dhuhr, and then you go home and you have soccer practice until 4 p.m. And then you've got from only say like 5 p.m. to 8 or 9 p.m. to get all your secular studies, like to learn math, whatever, history, all the subjects that you need to cover for the day. You quickly realize how to be efficient. You realize the importance of scheduling your time in your life. And all of that is possible just simply through barakah, right? And so even if you aren't learning, from teachers or how other students are learning, you will be able to learn better on your own. Even you'll learn how to learn just because you'll be placed in that position. And I think that's something that helped me a lot. Even when I got to college, I was able to self-study a lot of things independently. And I think that's huge.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this is an appropriate. I'm just representing my children and asking their question. This question on their behalf is, you talked about environment, right? So for guys, it's very easy because they don't stand out in the crowd. For girls, it's a bit different because if they wear a headscarf or something, they really stand out in a crowd actually. So I don't know whether if there is anybody who can answer from a female perspective how important it is to wear a hijab and what are the benefits and all that stuff. So maybe we don't have a panel who can represent them, but if you guys can add on top of that, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it's tough. I don't like I'm going to talk about that at all. And one thing I think is important though is in a public school system where sometimes the environment could be hostile, and sometimes there could be people that are like bullying for like appearance and like the the hijab that you're wearing. I think it's important to have a really good support system and really good friends that genuinely support their decision to wear the hijab, right? Because if whole school, it feels like the whole school is against them, right? But if they have a good group of core friends, when they're hanging out with their friends at lunch, when they're hanging out with their friends after school, before school, they'll just feel like they're happy to make it through that entire school or high school and the public school education system. So my only piece of advice, besides that, I don't feel like I know much more about this. Brother, was that useful?
No, that was helpful. Thanks a lot. That was very helpful.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think similar for me. Of course, I wouldn't be able to talk too much about hijab, but from the couple of lectures I've heard regarding hijab and everything, I mean, every like Muslim woman or sister that's wearing hijab is essentially carrying the flag of Islam, right? So brothers go, they blend in, they do whatever. Sometimes people don't even know that you're Muslim. But again, like you mentioned, they stick out in the crowd, right? And that can either be something that impacts you negatively or positively, right? And if you take advantage of the fact that you are sticking out and people are looking at you and you represent yourself in the best possible way, the situation and use the situation to portray your good characteristics, your good habits and everything, so that people will actually be attracted to learning more about your hijab and then learning about Islam. But yeah, that's the only insight I have to that.
Thanks.
That was such a good point. As Muslims, we should want people in the school to think, oh well, that girl with the hijab, she's very unique. She's the only person that looks like that, and she's the best at school, and she's the most respectful, and she's like the best at sports. So it's a huge opportunity. You can look at it two ways, like, oh, I'm looking weird, or wow, I can actually use this to stand out and give an amazing image to Islam. So by the time she leaves high school, everyone in that entire school, all 500 or 2,000 kids are going to be like, wow, Muslims are awesome. Muslims, whatever they do, they excel in it. They have ihsan. They're really good at whatever they put their mind to, and they're very respectful too. So I think this is an awesome opportunity to like represent. You're one of the few hijabis like in the school. So Omair, do you want to talk about how important it is to focus on academics and why it matters to go to a better college?
Yeah. So of course, especially middle school and then high school is very, of course, like extremely vital. That's when all your grades are counting, and it's kind of like the deciding factor of where you're going to university, right? And so my advice for high school students would be, when you're picking which university you're going to, of course, one of the main priorities is, well, of course, looking at how good the university is, where it's ranked among all the colleges. But another important thing to note is to look at how good or how, I guess, developed the Muslim environment at the university is, right? So Hamza and I go to Berkeley, and alhamdulillah, the MSA here is huge. I think we have about 200 active students. We have multiple like ilm classes every week too. We have 2-3 speakers coming in. The Jum'ah is huge. And this is important because, for example, I'll talk about Jum'ah, right? Something so simple. Something that, of course, we took for granted, but we, of course, like quarantine showed us that we shouldn't have took that even for granted. But at university, something as simple as Jum'ah can make the difference between like keeping your iman or losing your iman, right? Because we show up to Jum'ah in a big gym, and there's a lot of people, and we see a lot of community coming out. We have good speakers coming out every week, and that I think instills, like, or at least for me, it helps me just ensure that I'm developing my iman instead of losing my iman. When I see all my friends, when I see all the brothers coming for Jum'ah and everything, and we always hang out, we can see other people, other Muslims. Hamza and I usually get lunch with some of the brothers after. And I think that's why it's huge to look at the Muslim environment and the MSA even, I guess, at the universities that you're considering going to. And then Hamza, you can talk about how an environment reflects on your deen.
Sure. So better environment. So what that basically means is if you surround yourself with better people, you're just naturally going to be closer to the deen, whether it be people that are better in academics or people that are just better in any aspect. Islam supports excellence in every category. if you hang out with people that are straight nerds, that's better than hanging out with people that are like don't care about academics at all, that are getting straight Fs. Because Islam, of course, it not only promotes everything, excellence in every category, it also promotes the acquisition of knowledge. So hanging out with 4.0 students instead of 2.0 students is, in a sense, it's a more Islamic action right there, right? Hanging out with students that are just better in character is better than hanging out with students that are just completely disrespectful. So to ensure this happening, everyone's heard this one quote: you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? So make sure that you can literally write out the 5 students, like for all the middle school and high school students that are listening to this talk, write out the 5 students you spend the most time with. And if you feel like 1 or 2 of them is not solid in grades or not solid in character or does not care about Islam at all, if they're non-Muslim, that's something that you can't really consider. Or if they're just really disrespectful to their parents, for example, or if they have some really big red flags, you want to remove them from your list of 5 and maybe swap them out with someone that's a good Muslim, right? Or someone that is not a Muslim but has really good character, that's really smart, that's really good at sports, really respectful, and is just overall a really good, diverse, solid all-rounder. Because as Muslims, we want to make sure we're excellent in all categories across the board. And if we hang out with 5 people that are exactly like that, we're going to make ourselves a better Muslim. We're going to make ourselves a better human being. We're going to set ourselves better up for high school, for middle school, and then college as well. And inshallah, we'll just have like a good life that's going to be on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, right? That's exactly what we want. So, Omair, did I cover everything, or do you want? Okay.
Yeah, Jazakallah. I think that covers it. That makes sense. And then, yeah, I think those were the main points that we wanted to basically hit. And I guess, yeah, if there's any questions, we can just open it up for discussion, or if there's anything else that anyone wanted to discuss, or even
I think this is Shakil. Just wanted to add one more point, is that the same thing when we are kids, we don't understand the importance of what our parents are telling us. And I'm a perfect example of that. My father always used to tell me to hang out with people who excel in studies, who are best in sports and all that. And it's all, we always think that, oh no, why they are questioning us and all that. What is if I hang out with someone else? But I didn't realize it until I passed my engineering, when I saw that the people who my father was stopping me not to move around with them, they are still behind. They could not make up to their professional degrees. They could not do anything, and they are still struggling in life. At that point, I never used to realize how big that difference will be.
Thank you for that, Shakil uncle. That's a great point. MashaAllah. So do we have any questions from any students about anything? It can be about hanging out with friends. It can be about Quran, about Adhan, or sports, or just balancing Deen and Dunya, Salah, anything.
It looks like, mashallah, you guys covered it very nicely. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for that, Omair and Hamza, for taking out the time and educating. We had an issue, that's why